Hello and welcome to the Friday Knockoff podcast. I'm your co-host Matt Kendall,
And I'm Elliot Costello.
and every week a serial entrepreneur, that's Elliot, and a strategist, that's me, pick one big complicated issue and we explain it the way you'd want someone to talk about it at the pub. Elliot, as always, it seems these days there's been another massive week. So what are we going to be getting into today?
Madam, choosing a topic that is a big one, but a relevant one. And I think that our listeners will be interested to discuss the debate, if not fight, between Anthropic, the owner of Claude, and the Department of War. Of course, the Department of War has changed names. It's always been the Department of Defense. Pete Hegseth, the current secretary, changed its name from Defense to War. And it's this issue between Anthropic and the Department of War has kind of been washed out or faded away by the war in Iran. But it's something that we should really talk about because it matters. And it matters because the way that we're engaging with AI has to have ethics and has to have code of morality. And for Anthropic, they set within their constitution a red line. And the red line was that the Department of War could use all of its LLMs, could use its data, could use its technology, but the red line was that the Department of War couldn't deploy any of its technology for domestic surveillance on its citizens, and secondly, to be used for autonomous weapons. Now, that's pretty reasonable if you think about it. And this is a sort of private company versus a public department debate. But the Trump administration came out and said we will not be dictated to by big tech. It then went further and categorized Anthropic as a security risk, banning all departments across the Trump administration from using Anthropic, and going further to banning all contractors, so companies working with different departments, to say they can't use Anthropic. So Claude, a product I use, is now seen as a security risk. The first time that's ever happened in American history for an American company to be deemed as a security risk to the state of America.
Yeah, it's a massive story. I've been trying to communicate this to some of my friends in the group chats, and because in many ways it really is bringing the future forward. Putting aside just the fascistic nature of the Trump administration, essentially saying they're going to destroy a company for not agreeing to its demands. I mean, it's one thing to say that you're not going to you're not going to use their business, but to then turn around and say, well, no, this is actually, you're going to be a security risk. You're not going to be able to exist anymore. On top of the fact that they want to surveil their domestic citizens. It's that panopticon of, basically Big Brother. It's gone beyond ads just being served to us by the likes of Facebook and Google based on what we're doing online. This is, we've had surveillance capitalism for a while, but we're now moving into essentially surveillance autocracy because this is the government. The government can legally incarcerate and kill you, and it's going to be listening into all of your Claude chats if they can have their way. So, look, it's absolutely huge, and I think understanding essentially how that pulls the future forward. The surveillance state's been around for ages. They've been surveilling Americans and everyone around the world and everyone who uses different online platforms. But the thing is that up until AI, they haven't been able to essentially analyze all of it. They've had these mountains of data, but I think the NSA said something like, I read somewhere that they would need 8 million analysts in order to go through all the data. That changes with AI, and if they're able to have access to basically everything, people are using AI, ChatGPT, and Claude as their therapists. So, are they wanting access to all of that, and then what are they going to do with that information?
Well, I mean, I think it's clear. We've all been told for decades now to fear China, to fear its dominance over its people. And there's good reasons. China is a totalitarian state. China has certain controls baked within its CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, that does assume control of data and manages a surveillance state. I don't think in our lifetime we ever thought we'd see America go in this direction. And I think that's the real trouble and problem with this issue is we've seen the rise of authoritarian behavior with Trump. We were told to warn it in the 2024 Democratic presidential election. We were warned by virtue of the Heritage Foundation's 2025 project, where this was going. But I still think we believe that the nation that fights for democratic values and purports to be the arbiter of human rights globally wouldn't ever bring this upon themselves. A nation that stands for liberty, freedom, and justice would one day want to develop and deploy technology that controls movements and opinions of its people. So the reality is, like, what everybody should be aware of is there's technology now being used, including AI technology from ChatGPT, with all ICE agents. So the assumptions made around movement of migrants across the US is leveraged by the chatbot that most people use with ChatGPT. And that's really scary. So the assumptions are that these are the hotspots for where migrants will be, and agents, literally like an Uber driver, would drive around trying to find hotspots of migrants. And that can be at places of worships, at schools, at shopping malls. And that's the sort of conundrum we find ourselves in. America as a state is willing to deploy this technology, but at the same time, does the big tech get to decide what public utility a government can and can't use? And I think that's where we're finding the tussle. We want to avoid big tech control, but at the same time, nobody wants to live in a surveillance state.
Yeah, it's extremely concerning, and I think also what's concerning and also brings it really into the here and now is the other aspect of the other red line that Anthropic had with the government's demands, which is essentially using the AI for essentially automated weapons. Now, the thing is that this is
which is not a far concept. Like, this is live.
Yeah.
Palantir is doing it. The assumptions being made, and I'm sure many of the listeners will know, targets from Gaza to southern Lebanon to Iran are done through AI models. And you can deploy these assets and these autonomous weapons without a human ever flying a drone based on assumptions that are baked into an AI LLM. So right now, humans will lose their lives based on statistical data that a target is probable to be in a location.
Look, there's a potential horrific live case study that happened in Iran right now. It was so to provide some context for everyone. Claude, Anthropic's Claude, is the LLM used by Palantir for their Maven smart system, which is used to accelerate the ability and the scale and the frequency of being able to make tactical decisions in combat. It was used in Venezuela in order to decapitate and kidnap Maduro, and it's being used in Iran now. We don't want to go into.
Decapitated. He was arrested and taken back to Brooklyn.
Yes, exactly. No, he was. The regime was decapitated. It certainly hasn't been regime change yet. But what is happening essentially in Iran is look, even as badly as it's going for America, there's no understating the epic fury that was unleashed upon Iran. There was apparently 4,000 targets were hit within the first 100 hours of the campaign. So for a point of comparison, Israeli attacks in recent Gaza were also relentless, but this far outpaces that campaign by more than double the number of strikes. It's the scale and the intensity is incredible. Now, it's likely that intensity was essentially enabled by Palantir's smart Maven system. The other thing that's brought into this is the Trump administration is actively removing that human in the loop. So there was a team that would basically audit that target list, and that's been taken out. It was deemed politically incorrect and woke in order to do it. So it's clear that
Let's talk about the ramifications, though. Trump blamed Iran for a misfired missile that hit an elementary school, killing 175 children. So no sane person wants to see this conflict escalate. But for the stupidity that we're in now, to see children lose their lives as a result of, weapons, Trump simply blamed Iran, and it's now been proven that that wasn't a misshot from Iran. I think that the missile, correct me if I'm wrong, is a Tomahawk missile, which only the US and a few allies have. So we've got, we're living in a world of misinformation where the US president would simply lie and Pete Hegseth would stand behind him and say, oh, we're investigating. But now it's been proven, and Reuters, Washington Post, and New York Times have all accurately reported that that was a US weapon that did it, a missile.
Yeah.
So
not only that, the preliminary finding is that it was America. It was a deliberate hit. Now, this is an important distinction. It's not saying that they wanted to take out a school, but that target was meant to be hit. The angle that the Tomahawk, it's an incredibly precise weapon. Only America, Australia, and Switzerland, and I think America and Netherlands have it. It's an
didn't even know Switzerland had weapons.
Yeah.
So it must be neutrality.
Yeah. Or sorry, it could be Sweden. But it hit at an angle. That was the target that was meant to be hit. Now
it was also a double tap.
So
there was a second missile that came in. I think once first responders arrived at the scene, a second missile
and parents.
But geez, I didn't realize parents. But that, and the second missile hits. So, and that's an intentionality that you can't claim was a mishap. So
yeah. When you look at that scale, it is clear that that it was a terrible mistake. But it was a mistake that has happened because of the incredible scale and intensity of the targeting that at the very least has been facilitated by AI and by removing humans from the loop. So this is even without the automated capability of AI to actually be able to make decisions.
The ethics of it is what matters. So your claim is taking humans out removes the consequence, because if there is a group, individuals or a group of humans that are kept in the loop to help inform decisions, there are consequences even in times of war. Taking humans out and relying on LLMs and large, sort of AIs to make these decisions, autonomous decisions, takes away responsibility, because
absolutely. I mean, when you make a mistake, when a mistake is made like that, someone needs to be held accountable. Somebody needs to be hauled up in front of the Senate. Somebody needs to be able to account for it. And when they can turn around and say the AI did it, nobody's accountable. We've seen what's happened with social media and what's happened with teen suicides, and essentially, Zuckerberg gets up there and says, we'll try and do better, but that nobody's ever been held accountable. And I think that really gets to the crux of the issue. And I think, look, it's clear that Anthropic is not whiter than white on this, but I think what this whole incident has shown is that there perhaps is a clear distinction between Anthropic and Google and Gemini and OpenAI. Sam Altman swooped right in afterwards and said that he was happy to take the contract on, insisting that he was objecting to the same things Anthropic does, but that was only in a tweet. It certainly wasn't in the contract. But I think, and this is where
that's going to be made really clear, though. I mean, who knows where he was, but allegedly he was first flight to DC once Dario and the Anthropic team said, no, these are our red lines and we are not going to enter into a contract that crosses over these two red lines. And then when the attack happened on Anthropic, the public attack, which the Trump administration does very well, Sam was first to get on a plane and go to DC and will happily, feel this service and walk over the red lines. And that's a dangerous position. And I was in conversation with a mutual friend of ours last weekend who uses ChatGPT. It's improved his life, probably like most of humanity does it in sort of simple ways to create efficiencies in his workflow and the sort of fractional jobs he has. But I sort of explained ChatGPT and the ethics behind that. And, he's paying his $20 a month. And I said, well, you're feeding a beast now. Like, if there's no morality and ethics behind these tech companies, we're responsible. Like we have citizen requirements to actually decide what our purchasing power is. And Anthropic's made an ethical decision and they should be rewarded for it. But you know better than me, there's quite the opposite. The Trump administration has gone after them, but there is a public movement, or at least a shift. I forget the movement's name or the campaign's name.
So quit GPT.
Quit GPT. That's it.
Yeah, and I think this is where we as consumers, as citizens, do have some power as a mass voting bloc in terms of voting with our dollars. And I think, I think it's something. Look, I'm putting my brand strategist hat on with this, and I think when it comes to communicating a brand and doing business, there's marketing strategy and brand strategy. Marketing strategy is what you say in order to win business, and brand strategy sits much more at the core of business decisions. And quite often, your brand values and who you are as a brand, it involves a lot of pain to stay true to that. I was really impressed I think maybe a month ago, seeing at the Super Bowl that Anthropic has come out saying that they're not going to do ads. They did it really cleverly, really fun. It was just these really awkward conversations where suddenly an ad comes in. It doesn't seem right. And you think, okay, what do you do? They're saying no to ads.
You're talking about you're not talking about advertising. You're talking about ads within their technology.
Exactly. They're using the realm of advertising at the Super Bowl to say that there will not be. They're not going to be introducing ads into the chat. And you might think, well, whoop-de-doo, but I would sort of say, well, if you want to have a look at how much hyper-targeted online advertising can make you, look at how much money Zuckerberg has made. Basically, that whole business is built on targeted advertising based on interests and our data that they're collecting. So they've already...
We can barely use our Gmail accounts without being bombarded with advertisements.
No, exactly. It's that surveillance capitalism I was speaking about before. So already they've come out of the blocks and saying that we're not going to make that kind of money. That's a huge business decision to say we're not going to make money from that. To then follow it up within a few weeks of basically saying no to an authoritarian administration the way it is, and then to have the administration turn around and basically threaten the existence of the company and still hold firm, that is a shining example of brand strategy done right, where your actions back up your values and your communications. And so just bringing it back to what we're saying about it's really important that these companies that we're using adhere to our values and the kind of ethics that we believe in, and that we vote with our dollars. Because looking down the barrel of the future of this, the way AI works is it's essentially an intelligence, an alien intelligence that is being grown. It's not got coders sitting there writing code. There is a code base, but it's essentially learning all the time from a whole massive training data. And it's a bit like a toddler. You can't really control it. So on the one hand, Google was trying to do its, people were asking for to create a picture of Nazis, and they ended up having black Nazis in the picture that was generated. That was deemed as too woke by the likes of Elon Musk, and so he then wanted an unwoke AI in Grok, and we ended up with this AI declaring itself as being Mecha Hitler. So these things are really hard to control. Elliot, you're a parent, I'm a parent, trying to control a toddler. You try and instill it with its values, but they'll turn around and shout in your face sometimes. So this is quite often what these companies are trying to deal with. But the principles that they are training it on is really important. And a thought that really blows my mind is that future generations of Claude and Anthropic is going to look back on this incident and see that Anthropic said, no, we cannot work with you because you are crossing this red line of our constitution. And the constitution it's a huge document of first principles that the AI must follow. It's basically the AI's soul
Yep.
And so it's going to be learning off this kind of behavior. So basically what we need to be doing is, yeah, if you're on ChatGPT, check out the Quit GPT campaigns, search for it on Google, or just quit it and jump on the Claude. I mean, we've both made the jump recently, and I think, actually
Well, I
think
was
it's
going
much
to
better
ask if
anyway.
you have. You're preaching a lot of ethics here, Matt. I don't know. You've used a lot of chat over the last couple of years. Are you migrating to Claude?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Okay.
look, it's a better, it's better. There are, look, different
Hold
things
on.
are.
You just said you're doing it because it's better. Are you doing it for ethical reasons or product reasons?
Well, both. I mean, it does actually make, if you're worried, and look, all you have to do is jump online, or jump online to do a Twitter search or a thread search. Maybe don't do Twitter if we're talking about um, giving our attention to ethical companies. Look, it's hard. It's a minefield out there. But
Yeah.
there's lots of advice out there on how to essentially download all of the history and everything, chat and knowledge that
I saw on
ChatGPT's
LinkedIn
had you.
today, and my wonderful partner Sophie still uses chat, so I sent it straight to her. But I saw on LinkedIn today that it's less than 5 minutes to make that switch. So, look,
Yeah.
let's avoid some degree of advertising. Speaking of advertising, because we're not paid by Claude to do this podcast, that would be nice, but we're certainly
No.
not.
But
We, we
quit GPT, definitely. I think we
Okay,
can
so
safely land
yeah,
on that.
well, I mean, look,
Yeah.
well, you've got two camps evolving. You know, you're sort of Groks and Chat GPTs that say, do not regulate, put no rules in place, let us develop because we're at risk of losing the AI race to Chinese developers. When then you've got the Anthropics, and I'm hoping that the Copilot and Geminis sit in this side of the camp that says, well, rules still matter. Even when breaking new ground and developing technology, rules do matter. And some degree, which Dario, the CEO of Anthropic, has said, some degree of regulations will help design the right product, which means designing the right future, because we know the autonomous life that we're developing. Whole separate conversation about how real this AI bubble or opportunity is. But I think what we're trying to advocate is Dario's decision is a big story, and it shouldn't be drowned out by a war in the Middle East. This should be talked about in business and personal circles, because we have autonomy, as you have said, in this sort of battle between good and bad, and making sure that our dollars match our ethics.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I think that's probably a good point to end, as I think that brings us to the end of another huge week.
It does. Enjoy your Friday evening and have a great weekend, Matt.
Yeah. Stay calm and have a great weekend.